guys, welcome back. In today's video, I wanted to share with you guys 15 children's audiobooks that my kids have enjoyed. And I figure a lot of us are home right now with our kids and looking for ways to creatively fill our days. And one thing that we have really enjoyed is audiobooks. Audiobooks are great. Our kids have a regular, like a quiet time every afternoon. And so audiobooks is something that they really enjoy doing during those times. And so I thought I would share with you 15 of our favorites. We like using 2 different audiobook apps that are completely free. The first one is Hoopla. I really love Hoopla. I've talked about it several times on my channel already. It's super easy to just link your local library card with your Hoopla account, and then you get a specific number of borrows every month. I think for us it's 8 borrows a month, but it varies depending on your local library. And so that for us has been wonderful, and we're able to have 2 separate accounts, one for me, and then my daughter has her own library card, so she can have her own Hoopla account as well. So Hoopla is the first app that we really enjoy, and the second one that we have also used is called Libby. And I don't use that one quite as often. Their selection isn't quite as broad as Hoopla in my experience. But the nice thing about Libby is you don't have a limited number of borrows. You can borrow as many as you want to every month. The only stipulation is that they're not always available right away. Sometimes you have to be put on a waiting list to be able to listen to that book. And so it might take a week or 2 to actually listen to the book that you want. But if you have a constant flow of books that are on a waiting list, then you're always getting something new available to listen to. So with that being said, let me jump in and share with you guys 15 of our favorite audiobook books or series. All right, the first one that I wanted to mention is called Secret of the Hidden Scrolls. I will insert a picture here of all the books I'm talking about so you can see what they look like. This one is available on Hoopla, and I believe that we have listened to the first 3 audiobooks in this series. I think that's all they have available currently right now. This is also a great book series if you want to read through them together as a family. The premise of these stories is that there is a boy and a girl, and they travel through time to different historical biblical settings, and they kind of relive a specific story in the Bible. And so it's a little bit like historical fiction, kind of like historical biblical fiction, and it's something that the kids have both really enjoyed. It's nice that there's a boy and a girl main character, so both of the kids really connect with this series. The next audiobook series is called Grandma's Attic. There are 4 audiobooks in this series, and then there are also several other chapter books that are not audiobooks right now, but if you want to continue in the series, there are several other books that kind of fall into this Grandma's Attic series. But the first 4 are definitely our favorites. It's about this little girl, Mabel, and all different stories about her childhood and growing up. And I really enjoy how they incorporate her faith in Christ, and she learns a lot of valuable life lessons along the way that are pretty hysterical. And so my daughter, who is 9, she especially enjoyed reading this book series, and then we also enjoyed listening through the audiobooks. Okay, the next book series that I wanted to mention, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, is Little House on the Prairie. This is a classic. I believe that it's available on both Libby and Hoopla, and again, it's just kind of one of those timeless book series that is really great to read through as a family. We have read through, I think, the first 4 books in this series. Now there are going to be a few parts in these books that are a little bit graphic, or maybe a little bit different just based on the time period. You know, I think one of the books talks about when they were like butchering an animal to keep it for the winter. There's another book that talks about their interactions with the Native Americans. And so, you know, there are going to be some different places in these books where you might have to pause and have a good conversation with what's going on and provide some context and kind of give some more details. But overall, I have really enjoyed this audiobook series as well, and so it's definitely one I would consider checking out. All right, the fourth series that I've mentioned several of these books in a couple of my haul videos is the Classic Starts books. Now there's no like one particular book that I'm mentioning, but I'm just saying as a whole, the Classic Starts books are usually a good option. Basically what it is it takes classic literature and makes it a bit more kid-friendly. This has been a really fun series that we have really enjoyed. A couple that my daughter has listened to are Little Women, A Little Princess. I think they also have A Secret Garden. I'm currently listening to the Sherlock Holmes Classic Starts book. They also have Peter Pan, Robinson Crusoe. They have a ton of these Classic Starts books. Some of them you might want to listen to together just to make sure the content you feel is appropriate. But overall, I have been really happy with the Classic Starts books that we have read together, and so I feel comfortable recommending them for other families, so I hope that you'll check those out as well. The next series is the Green Ember series, and this one is actually one that my best friend recommended to me. Her family was reading through these chapter books just together at night, and so I was interested and I looked, and sure enough they were on Hoopla. So there's actually 4 books in the main series. I believe the 4th book was just recently released, but if you go on Hoopla, you can find 3 of the audiobooks for the main series, and they also have kind of a spin-off series of some different mini books that kind of fall into the same setting and just tell some kind of further stories within that Green Ember kind of setting. And so there are some parts that may be a little bit intense for younger listeners, so you might kind of have to gauge how your kids are liking it. But my older 2 kids, who are 9 and 7, really enjoyed this series. It was very suspenseful, and they were like, oh, we want to keep listening to find out what happens. And I know my older daughter listened to it multiple times, and she can't wait until the 4th book comes out on audiobook as well. And so this is definitely a series that you might enjoy listening to as a family. All right, the next series I wanted to mention is called All of a Kind Family, and this is one that was more specific to my daughter, who's 9, and basically it is a story or a series of stories about a family that has several girls, and so it kind of just follows the different stories of these sisters and different things that they get into together, and she really enjoyed this series of books. All right, the next series that I wanted to mention is called the I Survived series. This series of books is all different kinds of historical fiction. So basically the author picks a big event in history and kind of follows someone in that time period and what that might have looked like for that individual. And so it's quite interesting. She has a wide variety of different significant events that she covers, and so you kind of have to sift through that and decide which historical events you feel are age appropriate for your kids to be immersed in. But we listened to one about the sinking of the Titanic. We listened to one about, I think, about a shark. And we listened to one, I'm trying to remember, I think about Hurricane Katrina. And again, they're very high action, lots of suspense. So I definitely would recommend these probably for more of your older kids, maybe 7 and 9, that kind of age range. I don't think my 5-year-old would enjoy these quite as much just because it's a little bit too action-packed for her. But this has been a series that my older 2 kids have enjoyed. All right, the next series is called Beyond the Orphan Train, and this is actually by the same author, Arleta Richardson, who wrote the Grandma's Attic books. And this is a really neat series. This is about, again, it's kind of based on a historical time period where there was so many orphans. They were actually moving children from different orphanages in order to care for them. And during that time period, they had what was called the orphan train, and they would have kids literally on a train and go to different stops along the railroad and try to find them adoptive families. And so it's quite interesting. You're following this family of, I believe it's 4 children, and kind of their journey and their experience of, you know, getting moved around from orphanage to orphanage and then being on the orphan train and then trying to find a forever family. And so it's really neat to kind of see how all that unfolds, and it was a story that I really enjoyed as well. The next series is called The Sugar Creek Gang, and this is actually a pretty large series of books, and it is written by a Christian author, and basically you're following a group of kids and different adventures that they have, and there's also some faith-based elements incorporated into the stories as well. This kind of reminds me of like a Christian type of maybe Boxcar Children or Hardy Boys, kind of like that. So if your kids enjoy those kind of series, they might enjoy this series as well. The next series I wanted to mention is called Bramble Hedge. This kind of reminds me a little bit of the Beatrix Potter type stories. The setting is kind of like a woodland type setting, and you have different, woodland animals and squirrels and chipmunks and things like that. And they're very short stories, and so it's not like a long book. It's broken up into more of like short little like chapter book stories. And so this one was very simple. I think this would be great for probably the younger listeners. My older daughter enjoyed it as well. My son was not as into it, but if you have a child that really enjoys the Beatrix Potter type of stories, then you might look into this one. All right, the next series I already kind of touched on, but the Boxcar Children series is also a great series of books to listen through. I believe the first 17 books, it's either 17 or 19 books in that series were written by the original author, Gertrude Warner, but the subsequent books, the books after that, were written by other authors, just kind of using her same characters. All the books that we've listened to that were written by the original author are very wholesome and appropriate, and my kids really enjoy the mystery aspect of it, and I really like seeing how the brothers and sisters work together. So there's kind of that family camaraderie that I really enjoy about the books. So this is a really fun series, and I definitely would recommend you checking it out. The next series I wanted to mention is called Sarah Plain and Tall, and there are several books in this series as well. And this is a little bit more of a, I think the word for it is more of a somber book. You follow this brother and sister and how they lost their mom, and their dad is looking for a new wife, but he does it in kind of an unconventional way. He actually places an ad in a paper and says, hey, I live out here in the middle of nowhere. I'm looking for a wholesome wife to help me on the farm and raise my children. And so this woman, Sarah, sees his ad and she goes out to meet him. And it's kind of the story of how they get to know Sarah and how she gets to know them. And they're, wondering, is she going to choose to stay and become our mom and marry our dad? And so you kind of just follow the story of all these characters and see how they get to know Sarah, and then just kind of see how the story unfolds. So there are some sad moments in the story, but there are also some really hopeful and sweet moments in the story as well. All right, the next audiobook series I wanted to mention is Frog and Toad. We really enjoy the Frog and Toad stories, and so this is actually a compilation of all of the Frog and Toad stories, and I think the best part is it's actually read by Arnold Lobel, the author and illustrator, and so this has been a really fun one to listen to together, and I think it's great especially for the younger audience. So my younger two kids really enjoyed this series as well. The next series I wanted to mention is the Amelia Bedelia audiobook collection. There are several different classic Amelia Bedelia stories, and it's fun to just laugh together about all the funny things that Amelia Bedelia does because she doesn't understand what the words mean. And so this has been a funny series that I think, again, is a little bit more catered to the younger kids, but one that we've enjoyed listening to together as well. And the last series that I wanted to mention is called Christian Heroes Then and Now. Now, I will say this is one I definitely don't recommend just letting your kids listen to alone. I would definitely recommend listening to it as a family, because this series is going to be all about different Christian people throughout history, and a lot of them become martyred for their faith. And so there are going to be some some things you want to talk through in a lot of these books. I have listened to several of them so far, and they're really compelling stories, really inspiring stories, important stories that I think our kids need to hear, but you just kind of have to gauge, age appropriateness, as well as, pausing the story and kind of talking about what's happening and making sure the kids are understanding what's going on in the stories. So that is all 15 different audiobook series that I hope that you will check out either on Hoopla or Libby and maybe enjoy listening to some books together as a family. We really enjoy listening to audiobooks not only during the kids' quiet time, but also sometimes at lunch or sometimes in the afternoon if I want the kids to sit down and color or draw or do some kind of arts and craft activity. I might put on an audiobook at the same time, because it just encourages them to be quiet and still as they're working on a project. So definitely let me know if you guys decide to check out any of these audiobooks, and I'd love for you to leave recommendations down in the comments too if you have some other kids audiobooks that your family has really enjoyed. Thanks as always for watching. I hope you guys are doing well, staying healthy. Have a great day. Bye.